Hello and welcome back to the vlog. A couple of weeks ago I was in Bristol taking photographs at the Bristol Harbour Festival and I took two cameras. I took that, which is a GoPro Hero 3 Black, and it's got a funny little screen adapter thing so I can see myself when I do a bit of a recording. And I took this, which is a Pentax K-1 full frame camera with a big old lens on it. It's a 70 to 200mm DFA star. And I did a bit of a travel vlog and I put some pictures up with it. Cool. And during the vlog I was like, if anyone wants to see how these pictures are edited, leave a little comment. And apparently people commented, because here we are. Yeah, so my day job when I'm not doing YouTube stuff is actually a specialist image editor. That's what goes on my CV, and I take images which have been taken by other photographers, and in general I just tend to like unmess them up, make them real good, make them real nice. So that's things like removing reflections of glasses, opening eyes, swapping heads if someone's looking away in one image but not the other, so lots of group photography stuff. This is just for fun. This is something that I do just because I can, and just because I like learning new skills and stuff. So this, I can barely get it into the frame. This is what I take to do street photography. So if I'm walking around town, I'll take something like this. The big long lens, this is a little top tip. Big long lens is not to take pictures of stuff that's very, very far away. It's to take pictures of stuff that's close up and then make it even more close up, if that makes sense. But it's also to do things like knock the background out to make a nice smooth background, to give you that really creamy bokeh, which is, you know, when the person that you're taking a picture of is in focus and everything's out of focus at the back, boom, easiest way to do it. Because if you're walking around town, you've only got a couple of seconds to take any one shot. So you want this thing to focus quickly, and you just out to get the shots. You're not really worried about anything else. Having said that, you will notice a few things about this camera, apart from its size. In fact, let's swap to something smaller, considerably smaller. I will just whip this bad boy out. This is actually my first DSLR, and it's another Pentax. It's a Pentax K100. So this is the K1, this is the K100. This is a crop sensor camera, this is a full frame camera. Can we see the size difference? Oh, not really. It doesn't really come out on the kit lens, all that sort of stuff. Both are good cameras, both will take good photographs. Let's switch to this one for the time being. Same thing, you'll notice a few things about it. First of all, no strap. I don't like carrying I don't like carrying something around on my chest where it just smacks me in the chest. In the videos I was using a crossbody strap, which is a third party. It's actually a rapid strap RS5, so it means the camera's on your hip, means you can whip it up, take the shot, and then you can have all that weight, all this weight, across your shoulders. But if I'm just using a small lens, a small camera, I'm just hand holding it. I'm not bothering with any of that, and also not automatic. I quite often use aperture value, which on a Pentax is AV. So I've got a few top tips. Before we get into editing. A few tippy top tips. Let's grab another camera so I have something in my hand. Oh, hi. There's a Mamiya DSX 1000. Oh, yeah. If you know how to use one of these on pretty much manual, you'll know how to use one of these. Pretty much the same. Camera's a camera is a camera. 1970s camera from a couple of years ago. 2017, 18? Can't remember. Same controls, same everything, basically. Top tips. Oh, actually, no, we better go back to a digital camera. Top tips for a digital camera. So you've gone and bought yourself a DSLR, and I have three tippy top tips. First of all, take it out the box. Take it out the wardrobe. Take it out the drawer. Put it on the coffee table. Make sure you've got fresh batteries in it. Make sure it's fully charged, make sure there's a memory card in it, and leave it somewhere where you can see it. Because if you're going out, what you want to do is you want to take this thing with you. You don't want to leave it in a drawer. Why would you buy a camera and then never use it? So top tip number one, leave it somewhere where you have to see it every day. So coffee table, bedside table, something like that. Top tip number two, get away from auto. So basically what we're doing is anything that green stripe there, anything that isn't auto is good. I like aperture value because that means as I'm walking around town, I can select different apertures. So on the day in Bristol, I was using this and I was on f8 for all day. I just left the camera doing everything else, but I was using f8, which is a reporter's thing. It's like f8 and go. I didn't want to worry about the other settings. I just wanted to go around town to just framing and taking shots very, very quickly. If I saw something that I was thinking like, I want this person, but I really want a really soft background, then I would select something like f4 with a lens like this, with a short lens like this, maybe f2.8, although this one won't do that. But if I wanted to do a landscape and I wanted everything in focus, then I would use something like f11, f16, nothing beyond f16 because reasons. So tippy top tip number 2, get away from auto. Watch YouTube videos on how to use your camera. But yeah, the sooner you get away from auto, the better you're going to be. And the third tippy top tip. So top tip number 1, leave it somewhere where you can see it, ready to go, ready to rock. Top tip number 2, get away from auto. And top tip number 3. Like I'm saying it like I haven't forgotten what top tip number 3 is, but I do know what top tip number 3 is. No matter what DSLR you're using, you know, little baby DSLR, big boy DSLR, no, big girl DSLR, whatever you want to be, use RAW. Wait, what? Oh yeah, okay. So you see the screen on the back. Hello, screen on the back. So the screen on the back, when you take a photograph, you go, bang, got your photograph, you look at it on the back, nice and bright image. The camera has done a bunch of stuff to it. So it has applied curves, sharpening, it's applied an image profile, it's applied adjustments for barrel warping and distortion, it's applied a bunch of stuff. Whenever you hear someone say, I took a shot, bam, this is the image straight out of the camera, what they don't know, or what they don't understand, is that the camera has done a bunch of stuff to that image. So yeah, you want creative control over your images, you're going to select RAW. So a JPEG's terrible. A JPEG is a compressed image. It's had everything done to it, and if you want to edit it afterwards, you can't really do anything to it. With a RAW image, thank me later, but in the immediacy you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be like, oh, he told me to select RAW, but all my images are flat and are lifeless, and I feel so cheated. That's where the editing comes in, and we'll cover that momentarily. I don't know why I'm wagging my finger. But with a RAW image, and if you can, select DNG, which is digital negative, which is a universal format. What it is all the sensor data, when you push the button, bam, you took an image, all the sensor data is recorded to a file, and then you have to process that file afterwards in Photoshop, in GIMP, in UF-RAW, in Lightroom, in something. You have to process the image, and in that point, you add the color, you add the sharpness, you add the curves, you add everything else. So, top tip 1, leave the camera where you can see it. Top tip 2, get off of automatic. And top tip 3, use RAW. Be disappointed first few times you take the camera out until you work out how to edit your images properly. Wow. Let's get to editing. First of all, we're going to look at our images in Bridge. So if you're familiar with Photoshop, here's Photoshop, and any Adobe products, you will know that you will have something called Bridge, which allows you to preview all of your images. Now, these are a sample of images that you guys have already seen actually on the video, on the last vlog that I did. You don't have to use Photoshop. Photoshop is the program I use because it's what I use every day. It's part of my job. However, However, there are free programs out there, and one of them is GIMP. So you can use GIMP, which is GNU Image Manipulation, or just go to gimp.org, and you can process raw images using UF-RAW. So basically the same, or you can use Adobe Lightroom. It just happens that I've got Photoshop and I've got Bridge here. So Bridge allows me just to see a good preview of my images. Now you'll notice there's a little circle above each of these, and they've got a little line. That means if I open one up, it's going to open up on Camera Raw. Now I don't have GIMP installed, and I don't have Lightroom, so I am using Camera Raw. Basically, the settings are the same. They're all the same. The way you edit an image is basically well, there's only really one way to edit it, and that's to get creative. So if I go up here and I go Camera Raw defaults, the first thing you'll notice is the image goes from quite punchy and bright to fairly grey and flat, and that's because in RAW, or in fact any digital camera, your camera is going to try and preserve the highlights, it's going to preserve the midtones and the shadows, and that means it's going to take a very flat and neutral image. Remember when I said, hey, set your camera to RAW and then be disappointed? Well, this is what I mean. This is what comes out of the camera. It is kind of grey, it is flat, and it's not great, is it? It's not brilliant. Don't worry about it. We want to go National Geographic. We've got to understand what the camera is doing, and this is the raw sensor data from the camera itself. We got Lady Pants here, and she's kind of out of focus, and this guy's kind of very, very, very much in focus. We can see individual hairs, we can see texture on the skin. This is because I was using a telephoto lens set at f8. If I wanted her to be within the focal plane, I would have needed to use something like f11, maybe f16, but never go beyond, as a rule, I never go beyond f11. But this is where we start. So for an image, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore auto. We're going to ignore a lot of stuff. We're going to do this all manual. So I'm just going to tweak these sliders a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of exposure, and then do the same. I'm just going to bounce the slider backwards and forwards and add a little bit of contrast. Add some highlights. No, take away the highlights. Do we need highlights? We don't want highlights. We want to brighten this image up, and we're going to go backwards and forwards between these sliders. So what I'm looking for is a nice, bright, punchy, colorful image, but what I don't want is anything to be burnt out. I don't want areas like this, because look, we've got basically zero data here, zero image data. That's burnout. It's better to underexpose an image and then come back afterwards and adjust it than have burnout. So bam. Oh, look, he's got a chest again. Brilliant. Can we fit in view? Thank you. We can. Shadows. So we've got shadows and blacks. We've got highlights and whites. These are slightly different things. We can add more brightness to the image by pushing out the whites, the shadows, all this area under here, that's in shadow. We're going to ignore clarity, vibrance, and saturation. Especially on this particular camera, the K-1 doesn't need any clarity added. It's just not something I need. Color temperature, well, that's the difference between a warm day and a cold day. We're not going to change that. The white balance was fine as far as I'm concerned for the camera. So we have got the image kind of where it needs to be. I'm just going to add a little bit more black. Going to adjust the whites down a little bit because we're already like -100 for the highlights. I don't want to burn anything out. At the same time, I do want it to be sort of very, very bright, the image. Good. We are kind of about where I want it to be. I want to drop the blacks a little bit. So it's not going to be exactly the same as we edited it last time, only because I just can't remember all those settings. This is the important bit. This is the bit that took me a while to understand. Bam. Wait, what did you do? I just clicked on this one up here, HSL/grayscale. Hue, saturation, and luminance. We are not touching the hue. We can touch the luminance if areas in the image are dark, but saturation is our go-to girl because it means we got red, we got orange, we got yellow, we got green, we got aqua, blue, purples, and magenta, which we're not going to touch. But everything else we're going to touch. We're going to take those reds and we're going to punch them up. Look at that. Boom. Look at that hair. Look at it. Look. No reds. Lots of red. no red, lots of red. We're going to push it up until, well, we don't want it to burn out. We don't want it to look unnatural, so we're going to push it up about here. Good. We're going to go back to fit and view, and then we're just going to tweak it. We can actually push it up quite a way. We got to keep an eye on the rest of the image. We don't want suddenly this boy's shorts or whatever that is becoming super hot, super bright. We're going to push the oranges up. These people in the background, it's not going to matter for them. Their skin's going to start looking a bit weird, but we'll just push it up a little bit. Yellows, we're going to pump the yellows a little bit. It's going to affect her skin. Don't want to affect it too much. Just tweak those oranges again. Greens, what is green going to affect? Well, green's going to affect this big thing here. I don't really want to sort of draw attention away from these guys. Aquas, well, up here, right in the top where the screen was, that's going to affect aquas. And blues, can we add a little bit of punch to the blue? Yeah, got to be very careful with blue. Let's go and look at this dude's armpit. Okay, look, too much blue, you start getting banding and burning and stuff. So we're going to punch it a little bit, just a little bit, and a little bit more. Okay, cool. Fit and view, blammo. Right, brilliant. I think we've probably got it where we need it to be. We can add a little bit of luminescence to the green, just to take out some of the darkness out of it. So that's here. The luminescence lightens things up or darkens things down. We could add a little bit of, maybe a little bit of luminescence to the orange. Or take it away. I don't know. Just bouncing the slider around and looking here at her stomach, and the skin tones of everyone in the background. The reds, we probably don't really need to do too much with the reds and the oranges. I think everything's fine, to be honest. We also have one other thing. It's called curve. It normally starts off as parametric. You select point, and what this is the histogram. Your histogram, it's kind of mirrored up here as well. You put a couple of points on. So with these points, they allow us to adjust, well, up here, it's going to be highlights, and down here, it's going to be shadows and midtones. So we're just going to drop the shadows and midtones a little bit, and just a few points, look, just a few points, and that's going to darken up it's going to tighten up this whole area here. We don't really need to add much in the way of highlights, maybe a little bit, which is going to affect up here. I mean, I'm talking like a tiny amount. I'm looking for burnout on her arm. Maybe we're just not doing anything at all, because I don't want burnout. I do not want burnout. That looks about where I'd like it to be. So what we can do now is just double check all our settings. Everything's fine. We can open image. Blammo. And the image is open in Photoshop, and immediately we've gone from something that was grey and flat back to something that we saw on the back of the camera, back when the camera said, you know what, this is what your image is gonna look like. That, you remember that JPEG that I was talking about? The image on the back of the camera that we saw, or that I saw on the day, was this one. I just punched the microphone. Sorry about that. Anywho, we are gonna hit, well, I'm gonna hit C. I know all the shortcuts in Photoshop. Maybe I should actually say I'm going to hit crop. And it's also probably a good time to say my layout is flipped. So the toolbox is on the right-hand side because I'm right-handed. A lot of people at work keep the toolbox on the left and then all the settings to the right. And I don't understand. You kind of have to, you kind of have to reach across yourself, no? No, we use Wacom tablets, and I just don't like reaching across my own body to get any of this stuff when the shortcuts fail, and they do occasionally. But wait, we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about editing. Great. Why did you just bring up the C? The C? Okay, look, this is crop. This is the crop tool. We're going to go to 16:9. Blammo. Oh, wait. Hey, so what are you doing? Oh, you see these grids here? Yeah. It's divided the image up into thirds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dude on one of these third lines, and I'm going to drop that down a little bit so her eyes are on this third. So he's on one third, she's on that third, and it's just a guide for composition, image composition. I think this image could do with a bit of a crop, because if we leave it full frame, I mean, I was I was away. I was taking a couple of shots. I took a couple of shots, one of her looking back at him, and then the second shot, she was actually more in focus, but she was looking off to one side. So this is the better shot, but sometimes you don't have time to frame things properly. Sometimes you just don't have the time. This was maybe 2-3 seconds. I was like, oh, that's a nice shot. It focused. I took the shot. In fact, I took 2 shots, one after the other, and that was it. After that, this was gone. She was looking elsewhere. They were interacting with the crowd. This was just a moment in time. So I was wanting to capture that. So we can come back afterwards and reframe using the crop tool. Blammo. So we're going to use rule of thirds. And what we're going to do is we're going to go put him on one, drop this down, and then, oh, hang on a second. This background looks a little bit warped. So what we're going to do is we're going to straighten it by, well, we're going outside of the area and just using the rotation ability of the crop tool just to line up this grid with stuff that's going on in the background. Otherwise, it's kind of a little bit distracting, like this sort of dark area here. I'm just going to move that in a bit or out a bit. Out a bit. Out a bit's fine. You don't want something just clipping into the image. It's kind of, well, it's distracting for the viewer. Speaking of which, we've got this thing down here, so I just want to bring that in. And cool. So if I hit OK to that, apply that, blammo. We have quite a decent image, actually. It's now way more saturated than it was. We've kept the crowd in because these guys are playing to a crowd. If we just crop them in real tight, if we did a square crop, it would kind of work, I guess. But I don't know. It's a little bit too Instagram, right? And there's nothing here. What are they doing? They're just kind of looking at each other. Oh, great. Now they're in an environment. I like that. But wait, this image is huge. If I was going to save this to the internet, I would go image size and maybe 2000 pixels. But what did that do? Sharpen things up a bit. Oh yeah, look, she's way more sharp now. And I could probably print this. Fairly decent size. One of the nice things about a full frame camera is that you've got the freedom and the ability to kind of do stuff like this. You can either crop in real hard, or you can do a bit of a resize. And by resizing, you sharpen stuff up. I never sharpen things with this camera. If I was to go into this image and just hit sharpen tool, this boy's hair, we're at 300%, we're at 200%, this boy's hair would go crazy. You get like a halo around it and stuff. He's already as sharp as he needs to be. And she's now recovered enough by resizing it. So yeah, that's kind of what you would see on the internet. And in fact, the ones I uploaded to the video were even smaller than this. So hey, blammo, one really usable image. And I really like that. For something that was about 3 seconds in time, yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So back in Bridge, there were a few other shots, a few other way more complicated shots. So let's go and look for something a bit more complicated because that was fairly straightforward. So if we open up this one, so this was at the Spitfire bar. If we go blammo and camera raw defaults, oh look at that. She is suddenly way more flat, way more dark, a little bit more grey. But I liked this expression. I mean, I wasn't able to get too close. She has a hand on the mic stand, she's singing, this dude is doing his thing, he's got his plectrum in his mouth, he's got his little earpiece. It's a nice shot, or it could be a nice shot. Again, the K1 is going to allow us to crop real hard in on this, and I think maybe a square crop is good here. So, what are we doing? Well, we're going back, starting with exposure, just to get some brightness in the image. And then we're going to hit contrast. Ooh, get that contrast in there, because you don't want an image that's too faded. Highlights, yeah, the highlights are burning. Look at that. Oh my god, burnt highlights. His t-shirt, this boy's t-shirt down here, it's on fire. I mean, I wouldn't want to wear that. So let's crank that down, because they actually have shadow and stuff on them. If you look here at her top, you've got shadow from her hand, so there's direct sunlight. If we go and pan all the way down, you got shadow from the trees and stuff on his top, and he's got texture on it, so we don't want to lose any of that. Fit in view, I think I will. So highlights all the way down, knock them down. It's kind of a cheat, but hey, if you'd have taken this as a JPEG, oh no, my JPEG, it's ruined. Yeah, I can't do anything about it. Sorry. This is what happens when you take raw shadows. I'm going to raise the shadows a little bit just to get it to a place where we can start popping that color. Whites. It's actually okay. It's okay. I like it. I like it. Sort of. There we go. Blacks. Drop the blacks because look, if we crank the blacks all the way up, it looks. I hate it. We can't do with that. We need some darkness in our lives. There we go. There we go. Ah, look at that. That's a little bit better. So I'm just looking at this window, actually. That's what I'm looking. So the reflections of the trees, the awning, the lights, the actual tree trunk. I think it's a plane tree because they survive quite well in cities. They tend to shed their bark and that keeps them fairly pollution free. Kind of looks like a sycamore, but not a sycamore. Very important. I don't know why we had to have that aside. So, we had a point where we can do something with this image. I kind of want it brighter. There we go. We're pumping that contrast. Yeah, good. Right, I think we can work on it now. So we're going to go back to HSL, hue, saturation, luminance. Remember to click on saturation. We're going to pump the reds first of all because, and I want to really push them. There's a bit of a problem. This boy's sunburnt. We'll do that in a second. We'll deal with that in a second. We'll have to, I mean, I said this was going to be a little bit more complicated and it is. Good. Oranges. Well, now we can actually see people's faces. We shouldn't really push the oranges too much because things go weird. Very weird. We can push it a little bit though. Then I'm going to look at this boy's nose for reference. So push it up. Good. Yellows. I mean, what I do, I tend to start by dropping everything and then pushing it all the way up. What does it affect? So if you put it all the way left, all the way right, you can see what it affects. And it affects this drink and his fretboard. Okay, I'll push it a little bit. Well, that's okay. As long as it doesn't affect their skin or anything like weird in the image. Greens. You'd have thought green would affect that tree. If you look, yellow affects the tree usually a lot more than green will. In this case, because it's not like a direct shot, because it's a reflection, green is going to have like a big effect on that tree. So I'm going to push it real hard. Not so much that it burns out here and kind of here and here and here, but we're going to push it hard. Aquas. So that's going to cause a problem around the leaves of the tree. Bit of an issue. So we're going to drop that back because the boundary between the sky and the tree itself, you're going to start getting like blues and stuff, really hammering it. We can go here. We can add remove chromatic aberration. Click that button. That's going to help a little bit. That's for like lens flaring and not lens flaring, but separation of light, usually in the corners of an image. So I'm going to get a blue and we're going to crank that up a little bit, keeping an eye on the window, but I really want to get our dress saturated. So we'll crank it a little bit. I don't want to overdo the window, but you know. And then purples and magentas. Well, it's going to have an effect on our dress, probably more of an effect actually than the blue itself. So if we drop that back, we never touch magenta because magenta just does weird stuff, usually in highlights and shadows. So we're going to get rid of that. Luminance. We could probably push the blue. Do we want to push the blue a little bit just to correct that? Yeah, I think that's corrected up there. Greens and everything, I don't think we need to push. So this is now looking like a fairly decent image. Go back to curves, point, point. Remember, highlights are at the top, shadows at the bottom, and then midtones and everything in the middle. Do we want to crank it up? I think we can go up with this one. Yeah. Down, down, down. Not too much. Play around. About that. We've actually raised the shadows, I think. Just a little bit. Raise the highlights and the shadows. Okay, cool. Checking this out, checking it out, checking it out. Do I need to change the temperature? No, because we've already changed the color. Or do I need to change tint? Nope. Tint? Nope. Nope, 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 nope. We're okay. Clarity, vibrance, saturation. No, leave those. Open it. El Blamo. This is going to be a hard one. Why? Because it is. How are we going to crop this? Square crop? Square crop seems sensible at this point. We are going to crop in. Seems to work. Yeah, seems to work. We could do an 810, 8x10, nice 8x10 headshot. That would work quite well. Or we could change that so it's a horizontal. So she's actually singing to someone. Could do that. There we go. Trouble is this board here. Now, there's no real way. Well, I mean, apart from taking 2 steps to the right, but then there was something to the right as well. It gets complicated, especially if you've only got a few seconds to take a picture. So what we can do is we can kind of line this up. But wait, that means we're going to have these people's heads in this shot. Okay, I mean, we can crop down in on her like this. That would be quite a nice shot. Is it straight? Yeah, it's straight. This dude here, is he okay? He's okay. I mean, we could do that. Does it have does it leave us with plenty of resolution if we wanted to print image size? It's 2.9 by 2.3. Actually, what size is it in terms of inches? It's 9 by 7. So we've really cropped right in on it. 9 by 7. 8 by 10. I mean, we could front image it maybe, but in terms of like internet, that's fine. It's a nice shot. She's doing a little singing to the camera. The next image. So this is an example of why you would absolutely 100% want to take in RAW, because oh boy. Okay. Because hello. Yeah, this is one of those times when what happens is you see a great shot, you don't have time to change any of the settings. You are at f8 and you're like, wow, I just need to take the shot. And you've got all of this in the background. And the camera's like, okay, well, I'll expose for this. The highlights, the sky, everything in the background. You're like, oh no. Oh no, no, no. Okay, well, I'll bump the exposure. No, you won't. No, you won't, because we're going to take the highlights down, put the shadows all the way up, change the exposure. Blammo. Okay, we're getting to a point where we can actually use it. We're going to go back to remove chromatic aberration because we want to make sure these leaves in the background are not messed up completely. Good point to start. So what we've done is we've lifted the shadows all the way that we can. But at the same time, we've dropped the highlights to get something back in the sky. Because otherwise, well, you know, there's nothing there. We're going to pump the whites a little bit. Drop the blacks a little bit. I mean, this dude is kind of not really in the picture. Not in the picture. Contrast? Yes, please. This is, temperature, color temperature. Pump it up a little bit. This is where we need the color temperature because this was kind of late in the day as well. Everyone was a bit tired. Everyone was late, you know. We're a little bit tired, a little bit. Just want to find somewhere to chill. So the important thing is the dog, El Doggo. Hello? El Doggo. There's still detail in the dog. And this boy's expression. He was actually having a conversation with this dude. But it's great. He's looking straight at the camera and he's like, what? Which, considering El Doggo is just up on the shoulders, and the reason for that is there was a lot of crowds. The other side of these pillars, a lot of crowds. So we're gonna have to do a little adjust. So this is going to be a pain in the butt. Super pain in the butt. This is one of those ones where you just have to keep tweaking stuff until it looks right. What we don't want is any burnout around the side of his head. We don't really want to drop the shadows too much. Well, we can't drop the shadows too much. I'm gonna raise up a little bit. I don't think there's too much I can really do. I mean, I remember playing with this one for a while to get it right, and these are all backed up. So anything we do now isn't really going to affect it too much. I'm actually going to drop the contrast a little bit and then tweak the blacks instead. Okay. All right. I really want the side of this boy's face to be lit up a little bit. We're going to have to get rid of some of those blacks, I'm afraid. So blacks, whites, shadows, highlights, and contrast. Can we pump the contrast a little bit? It's just tweaking it by degrees at this point. So we have saturation. Well, the immediate thing to do is just crank the reds, right? I don't think we need to crank them too much because his glasses are already pretty red. I'm looking at the crane in the background though. We want to get some detail into the crane. Maybe we'll blow his glasses out in favor of getting stuff in the background. Fine. Oranges. Can't really do much with the oranges. It helps the brickwork and it helps the dog, but this dude is going to go very like red. His skin's going to go red as well if we put too much red into it. So we're gonna kind of keep the skin tones neutral as much as we can for this. Yellows though, you know what I was saying, that the tree kind of gets lit up with yellow? That's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of yellow in leaves and foliage and stuff. The greens can get pumped as well, so we'll do the same thing here. Aquas. So the aquas are going to have a big effect on the water down here, and that just means that something that has like almost no data in it, suddenly you've got some color in there, so something to look at. Cool. Blues, again, we can really crank them blues. We can really crank them blues because this sort of fence here, jeans, bag, sky, we're just going to keep an eye on the water and the edges of the trees, but because we hit remove chromatic aberration from here, if I untick that, is it going to mess up the edges? No, we're okay. We're okay. I'll leave it ticked because this was such a tricky one to get. Blues and aquas are going to affect the highlights because we're reflecting sky in the highlights as well. So we're also going to tweak this a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Just bring up them sort of highlights there. I don't want to lose anything in the image. Okay, cool. Tweak the mids. Yeah, do a little tweak of the mid. Three-point curve. Oof, we're going dangerous here. Good. Is there anything that could be gained from? No, I don't think so. So the background was already pretty bright. We've brightened up these lads here. Reopen the image. We get this. How and what and why do I do with this? I don't know. I don't know. We don't know, Mr. Frodo. We could do a crop. Do we want the brickwork in there? Probably. Probably actually want to do a 69 crop. There we go. So we do a 69 crop. What I'm going to do is put him on one of the rule of thirds lines, the dog's eyes on the other one, so we get all the crowd and stuff in the background. We get the boats, we get the bikes, we get a bit of wall. I want a bit of wall. Want a bit of wall. Let's go up a little bit. Can we straighten this? We can a little bit. Oh, the dog's eyes have moved. Oh well, then it don't matter too much. Don't matter too much. I just want to make sure that there is something in front of them because you've got this bar and you're not going to really be able to get rid of it. The dog is as close to rule of thirds as I can kind of realistically get it. I do want the sky and everything in. So if we hit blammo. They are a little bit over to the left, so we can probably just crop in a bit. In fact, if we go to unconstrained, there we go. Just put them closer to the center of the image. So instead of looking at the lines, now we're looking at the spaces. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. There we go. That's a little bit more comfortable for them. So they go from big, open, wide, and then the subject of the image. Nice kind of wide image anyway, kind of gives you an idea of the environment they're in. But look at that. Considering if we go back here, I think this is slightly brighter than the. So yeah, considering it starts off like this, and this is literally, I mean, you're not going to wait and say, "Oh, excuse me, guys, can I just take a shot of you and your dog?" And by the way, I need to take a shot. I need to change the settings. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to make sure the background's okay. And they're not concerned about that. I mean, afterwards, if you're taking the shot and then you can go and show them on the back of the camera, that's great. This is what people are concerned about. Have a conversation with them now. Say, hey, can I take your email address and I'll email you this picture? Fine. But, you know, that's why you take RAW. That's why you take RAW. That's why you take RAW. Good. You know what? I might leave it there for the time being. So if you like this, definitely leave a little like, leave a subscribe. And if you do subscribe, click the little bell because that will give you notifications. And I tell you what, I'll catch you next time.